Coming up tonight on This Week in Politics.
We've been cheated twice now, with the murder of the president, the murder of Bobby Kennedy.
Former Vice President Walter Mondale remembers his friend Robert Kennedy as we approach the 50th anniversary of his assassination, killed on the night he won the South Dakota Democratic presidential primary. But first, this past Thursday, I co-moderated a debate between the two Republican candidates for governor, Marty Jackley and Kristi Noem. Tonight, analysis on that race from KSOO Radio's Patrick Lalley.
Anytime you look at a debate, it's about expectations. That's the old saw about debates. And in this case, I had pretty high expectations that Kristi Noem would come out and really go after Marty on some legitimate points that she's been making. And Marty did really well, I thought, accounting for himself, as you'd expect. But he made his points pretty well.
Patrick Lalley says in the final debate of the Republican contenders for South Dakota governor, Attorney General Marty Jackley may have edged out a win over Congresswoman Kristi Noem.
I think Marty probably comes away feeling pretty good about the debate.
Lalley tells me Noem was not as aggressive in the debate as he had expected, but in the next breath says that may have been Noem's plan all along, to get through the debate with no major gaffes and let her campaign ads do the heavy lifting in terms of persuading voters.
In the middle of it all, Marty Jackley.
Over the last week and a half, Noem has gone after Jackley hard, painting him as a peer insider with a questionable record of involvement in the EB-5 and Gear Up scandals, both of which happened when Jackley was the state's top law enforcement officer, a point Noem touched on during our KSFY Argus Leader Sioux Falls Chamber debate 3 nights ago.
You deserve a governor who will be honest with you, who will tell you the truth, and who is willing to be accountable.
Jackley countered that, though, saying when it comes to openness and transparency about their offices, it is he who has the upper hand.
I think, again, this is an example of action over words. When the Congresswoman took issue with the Attorney General's with my travel records, I disclosed them. She still hasn't disclosed her travel records.
Lalley says the fact that there are pointed negative ads in this race tells him something about the overall Republican gubernatorial campaign.
They know this is a close race. Everybody knows it's a close race. And if you can get 2 points by going negative, you're going to go negative.
Voters have told us they don't like negative campaigning, that it turns them off to the political process and potentially the candidate who runs the ad. But Lalley tells me in close races, negative campaigning is almost to be expected, especially in the final days of a race where a candidate is looking for a way to break away, to build their numbers up while tearing their competitors' numbers down.
If you're 20 points behind and you go negative, you can bring somebody else's negatives up. You know, when you're negative advertising is meant to make people think ill of the other person. And so if you've got somebody with really low negatives, they're just well liked, you can make up some ground, but I don't think you can make up 20 points.
Much of what Lalley heard in the debate is what he expected to hear. But then came this.
Sioux Falls here in downtown is much more dangerous and has more violent crimes than Lincoln, Nebraska, Omaha, Nebraska, Fargo, North Dakota, than other regional cities that are larger than Sioux Falls.
I specifically asked Lalley if Noem's contention about crime in downtown Sioux Falls rang true to him.
No, not at all. And I was surprised by that. One, there's been a lot of reporting about crime in Sioux Falls because it was an issue in the mayor's race, as you recall. There's not a big jump in violent crime in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And she took it another step and put it downtown. Downtown Sioux Falls has a crime problem. That's what she was saying. A violent crime problem. That doesn't ring true with me. And I don't think it rings true with people who live here.
A reminder, primary election day is this coming Tuesday. Be sure to stay with KSFY News, both on air and online, for our continuing coverage. Coming up next on This Week in Politics.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've kept the air on because we've heard an alarming report.
We are approaching the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Robert Kennedy, who was shot just hours after winning the South Dakota Democratic primary for president. Tonight, a remembrance from former Vice President Walter Mondale, whom I sat down with just a few weeks ago. Keep it right here. We'll be right back.